Creature in the Woods is another one of those three friends set out with a video camera and capture Bigfoot type of movies. Hey, look at that! I think I just made a genre. Well, at least here they didn't plan on making a Bigfoot documentary, but instead a wilderness survival movie. So, I mean, hey, at least they tried to be different. It opens up with a family out hiking in the woods of North Carolina. They find a video camera and rewind the tape to see what might be on it. And apparently whatever it is shocking. It then says the camera was turned over to the police who combed through the footage. I guess the cops needed to make a quick buck because they turned this evidence into a movie. Now we see three friends. Den, which I think is short for Dennis, Shonda, and Nick. Not that it matters much, but from what I can tell, I think Nick and Shonda are brother and sister, and for sure Shonda and Dem are a couple. Anyway, yeah, these three friends set out to film a wilderness survival documentary, living off the land for the next 55 hours, in the woods of Hobgood, North Carolina. Before heading out, however, they want to get some B-roll footage, and decide to go to a small bar and check out the locals. Inside, everyone seems pretty normal, and they all agree to let him film here. Except there is a table of rather rough-looking guys that they zoom in on for just a second. They all drink some beer, dance, and have a good time, but Shonda isn't there to make friends. She wants footage for her movie. So she talks to a group of old guys who have lived here their whole lives. They're a bit drunk, but the information they gave her is still valid. Beware of the wild man, and be sure to stay on the trails.
So you've seen it too?
I've seen all sorts of things, generally from the bottom of my beer glass.
The next day, they waste no time getting out into the woods, and the wild man wastes no time letting them know that they're not welcome.
What was that?
We hear him howling off in the distance before they can even get their backpacks on. Dem gives us a few tips on how to rough it into the wilderness, which aren't really that helpful. Yeah, I think everyone knows how to lean some sticks against a tree, put some branches on it, and call it a shelter.
Now that we have our shelter, let's build our fire.
One thing that does happen is while they're filming, they come across some hunters. Even though this is a protected park, they decide to not call the cops on them, and just mind their own business. They go over the different types of wood needed to build a fire, and I'm starting to get flashbacks of my Boy Scout days. During lunch, Nick sneaks away to take a leak, and that's when we see it. It's quick and just a glimpse, but you can't deny it. The wild man is in these woods. It's at this point the group decides to shift their focus from a nature documentary to a Bigfoot documentary, thinking about how rich and famous they'll all get if they can just get the creature on tape. Not everyone's convinced, however. Den still thinks it's just a bear, and if it's a female with cubs, she might attack. Even so, curiosity killed the cat, so they decide to carry on. They continue to find evidence, hair high up in a tree, and even some scat.
Scat is animal.
Eventually, they hear another howl, and I do have to give them credit. Everyone goes running towards it, not away from it. I always hate when you watch shows where someone's out looking for something creepy, they hear what they're looking for, and they run in the opposite direction. Well, as you would guess, the wild man got away, but even Den caught a glimpse of it this time. And yeah, it's no bear. They continue on, having a close call with a deer. Yeah, a deer jumps out and knocks him over. But this only scares Den more. What could have spooked a deer so much that it would run toward a group of humans? Right before dark, they do find a dead bear. Worse yet, it's still warm. This is a fresh kill. At night, they set up camp and eventually go to sleep. But no sooner did they get into their tent that they hear something outside. Nick and Shonda go to investigate, and they see red glowing eyes. But then Den pops up out of nowhere to inform them that if you shine a light into animals' eyes, you'll get eye shine. So it was probably just an owl or something. Learning this calms them down just enough to head back to camp, which now smells really bad. Another sign that Bigfoot is near. They discuss throwing in the towel and heading home in the morning, but in the end, everyone agrees. If they quit now, they'll wonder what if for the rest of their lives. Thankfully, they make it to morning and continue on their quest to find Bigfoot. Just outside of their camp, they do find some makeshift bedding, and from the angle, it looks like the creature stayed here and watched them all night.
It was watching us.
Well, they hike some more and eventually make it to a stream. Where there's soft mud and dirt, there's gotta be footprints. And here's no exception. 24 inches long with a 7.5-foot stride. Or, in other words, huge. A little later, they hear another howl, and this time, instead of running towards it, they're all scared and run away, with Den getting snatched up and taken into the woods. Shonda stops and wants to go back for him, but Nick knows at this point it's already too late. Nick yells at his sister, blaming all of this on her. The typical BS drama that you have to have in a found footage movie ever since the Blair Witch. They eventually make up and get the confidence to keep going. They need to find Den, not because he's a living person and they care about him, but because he has the pack with all their gear in it. Some friends. Well, they don't have to worry about Den's fate for too long, because Nick spots something in the distance.
It's Den! It's Den!
As they get closer, we can see it is Den, and he's dead.
What? I say he dead.
Instead of getting their gear, they just drop to their knees and forget about it. It's at this point Shonda decides to tell Nick about the warning she was given at the bar, to stay on the trails. But honestly, it's a little pointless now, don't you think? Nick knows they're better just setting up camp for the night and finding their way out in the morning. But will they make it to sunrise?
He's here.
Well, Nick isn't. Shonda rips the tent for no reason at all. What a waste of a perfectly good tent. Well, she takes off and runs smack dab into a tree. In the morning, Shonda wakes up, hurt but alive. She gets a glimmer of hope when she sees the main path, but then hears a howl and she knows the beast is close. She runs and hides under a fallen tree, and then the monster attacks, and she's a goner. But wait, did you think I was going to let them get away with such a silly-looking suit? What is this, a giant Ewok? It really does look like a man in a suit. Oh, wait, it is a man in a suit. And it was supposed to be the whole time? You're telling me that it was the hunters all along? During the end credits, we see them messing with the camera and hauling bodies off. Here's where we get a good look at the hunters, and I think it's the group of guys that we saw earlier at the bar. In the end, we see more of the family from the beginning. Remember when they freaked out seeing Bigfoot on the camera? Well, that's where we see him now. But this time, it goes on for longer. And it looks like they too are going to have their own run-in with the hunters. If that's the case, then how did the camera get turned over to the police in the first place? I thought the family gave it to them, but they were killed by the hunters? I don't know, it just makes no sense. In the ever-growing found footage Bigfoot genre, Creature in the Woods is just gonna blend in with all the others. I don't really mind the twist that Bigfoot was a guy in a suit the whole time, but I could see how some wouldn't like that. To me, it just seems like it was a convenient way to explain why the costume looks so bad. There's really no motivation for the hunters to kill people, other than to say that they're just crazy, and maybe that they enjoy hunting humans for sport. It does start off pretty slow, like, I don't need to know wilderness survival tips. I seriously doubt I'll ever be lost in the forest and think, If only I had paid attention to Creature in the Woods, I'd be safe. But I get that they were out there to do that, to film a wilderness survival doc. Just make it worth my time. Like, for example, Den was trying to show us how to find direction using a stick and some rocks. Come back to that later on. I don't know, maybe have them running from Bigfoot. They come across the stick and use it to stab him or something. I don't know, just don't waste our time showing it in the first place. I can't really say any of the characters were likable, so in the end, you'll root for the monster the whole time. The acting is bad, especially in the beginning. The music is non-existent because it's found footage, and all in all, the story is unoriginal. I give Creature in the Woods 1.5 Shondas running into a tree out of 4.
Against my better judgment, we'll keep tracking this thing. But if things get hairy, then it's gonna...